Hey everyone, this is Chris, and thanks for joining us on Fatherhood Striving Together. Today we wanted to bring you a bonus episode that we feel sets a great scene for who we, the hosts, are and what we think the show will be about. Funnily enough, we had actually already recorded 4 or 5 episodes of the podcast before eventually settling on the name. It's a lot harder to come up with a name than it is show topics, as it turns out. At the point this podcast is beginning, we've already actually recorded 7 or 8 episodes, so things have progressed a bit since episode 1, hopefully for the better. So here's our introductory episode, where you'll get to learn more about myself, Kyle, and Jason, and get to know our unique backgrounds and perspectives. Enjoy this bonus episode of Fatherhood Striving Together. What are we talking about? Introductions.
Well, yeah, we're going to do introductions. I think we need to explain the podcast because what's interesting is when you just said that, I thought about this is an introduction to fatherhood. And we didn't get an introduction to actual fatherhood. Like there was no class, there was no orientation. Like there was no course that you had to pass in order to become a dad. Like you're just there. You're thrown into it. It's a baptism by fire, and it's just go for it, sink or swim.
And
but
some of
I
us
hope
were
you
very,
swim.
very young when we were thrown into that pool. Yeah, that's so true. There was no guidebook given. In fact, I remember walking out of the hospital when our first 2, because we had the twins, were born, and when you finally get the papers or the clearance to go home, the thought I had in my brain was, the medical professionals are allowing me to take 2 human lives home. Yeah. At what point have I showed, like I didn't pass a course, there's no test I took, so I don't have like a passing grade to like verify that I'm ready to do that.
And those doctors, as you're leaving, they have no confidence in your ability to do what you were supposed to do now.
Yeah, 100%, because they had seen me for the last 3 days sit there and struggle to change a diaper because I grew up an only child. I never changed diapers. Like the only person I was close to was my cousin, who was 3 years older than me. So there were no babies around me. So I don't know how to change a diaper. And I'm changing my daughter's diaper, brand newborn. She's like 6 pounds nothing. And all of the nurses and doctors are watching me do it. And I have an audience, and they're watching me struggle. And then they're laughing because I can't like strap it on because I'm afraid I'm gonna break her. You know, I'm just trying to do it gently. So yeah, 3 days before they're laughing. 3 days later, they're like, get in the car seat. See you later.
Yeah, best of luck.
See you in a week for the checkup. What? Like, how is that fair? I'm not ready for that.
It doesn't matter how many parenting books you read either.
No.
There's nothing that prepares you for, like the drive home for me was like, oh my goodness, like someone could hit me. Like it was the most terrifying. I drove like my grandmother the whole way home. Like I'm slow. People are passing me, blowing their horn. I don't care. I'm going 35. It doesn't matter that I'm on the highway. It doesn't matter that you've got somewhere to be. Like I've got precious cargo in here. I have never done this before. There's no manual. There's no return policy. Like what am I supposed to do with this kid?
The first turn out of the hospital where our kids were born, I had to take a left, and I had to cross 2 lanes of traffic to get a left. That was like the most stressful thought of pulling out of the parking lot and approaching that exit and thinking,
a lot of forethought went into that.
I've got to go left here. I could go right, but then again, that's going to add a ton more time that I don't want in the car. I want to get home as fast as possible so I can just get them in their in the safety of our home. So I'm just stressing for 50 yards as I'm approaching this exit. Like, oh boy, it's a left. Praying to God, please don't let anybody be coming in like oncoming traffic. I would just love for their stoplight to be like half a mile down the road and it's clear and I can take a left. And clearly we made it because my kids are now 12. So we survived the left turn.
So there wasn't a first trial run before that we don't know about.
No.
Okay.
No. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's so true about fatherhood. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Well, I think like that, even so, Chris, you had your first kids and you were how old?
Third 30. So let's see, 7 now. So 35.
Okay, so you're 35, Jason.
I got married right after I turned 22, and then we had our first kid when I was 25.
Okay.
Yeah,
I had-
25 for me.
I had my first two because of efficiency.
Yeah.
Technically, I was a month from being 25, but I was still 24. And I also had just been married the summer before that. So I'd only been married for about 10 months by
So you
the
were
time.
married at 23?
No, I was married at 24.
24.
I had just turned 24, got married, and then about a month and a half, 2 months into marriage, we're pregnant with twins.
With twins.
Then they have to come a little early because they are twins. And so we're celebrating our 1 year anniversary with like 2-month-olds. And
Which is just the way you drew it up.
yeah, exactly right. Because everybody has the 3 to 5 year plan.
Everyone does that, yeah.
And yep, we didn't have that.
That was yours.
So when you talk about no instruction manual, it was a trial by literal inferno, not fire. It was figuring out how to be a husband and a dad to 2 kids all at once. And that was stress upon stress. So when I say I don't remember much of the first year of my twins' life, like when I was age 25 to almost 26, it's very true. Like there are stretches that are just gone in my memory.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember them.
So becoming a father at 35, Chris, you're probably the best version of the dads, the three of us that we have here, because if he was 24 and I was 25, but you got a decade of
Yeah.
life experience before becoming a father.
I need to amend
on
my
us.
answer. I'm pretty sure I'm wrong. I don't think I was 35.
It's still better off than us,
I'm
though.
trying to say someone's going to be really upset with me for not knowing how old I was. I'm trying to do the math in my head. So my son was born February 15th of 15. I was born in the end of 82. So that makes it, I don't even know. 83.
33.
Yeah, we'll go 33. So
33.
33. That's still
Still good.
an
I mean,
advanced-
almost
more
a
advanced
A
age. So
decade of experience.
Yeah.
in life.
So I had no idea what I was doing with my life really for the 20s really. So getting married in my early to mid 20s, oh my gosh, not even close to ready for that. And I think that for me, just getting to that point was it was about having. I think I really waited to have a good career kind of under my feet, had some idea where I was going with that. And I think that, I mean, I wasn't a believer at the time. I didn't really have that background. So it wasn't anything, I didn't really have anything telling me that she got married now. I think it's kind of the cutting edge of the sort of the worldliness that we have now, where everybody wants to wait until they're, I don't know, early 30s. It seems like to be
Yeah.
married or to even get really think about a life starting.
Yeah.
Maybe even getting a job. I mean, some people want to be in school until they're darn near 30 years old. It seems like now. So it to me that's when we got started, and we got married in 9. Gosh, I'm in so much trouble. So when
You should
we
have taken notes before we
Yeah.
asked you
I
these
know,
questions.
my gosh.
I thought this would
Hold
be the
on.
episode
It's
that didn't
right
need
in here.
research, but maybe we should
now
have.
that I'm on the spot, I can't think of a single thing.
Did you just pull your ring off to look at a date?
It's on there. Right
Oh, it's
there.
inside.
Wow.
Oh, that's
Just
a
wanna make
great
sure I
cheat
don't wanna
code.
get
That's
it
a
wrong.
great cheat code. All right, man, my finger's itchy.
So the real smart thing, it's also my wife's birthday.
Oh man,
We got married on her birthday.
Nice.
Just happened to be that Saturday in the fall of the year that we wanted to
Yeah.
get married in. So,
So you can pull the whole "I'm your greatest gift" thing.
exactly.
Right?
Yeah. I have that.
well planned.
Yeah.
Yes. Well done, sir.
So anyway, yeah. So it was 2015 when we got married. So that makes this coming up being our 9th anniversary here in a couple months. So we had a couple years, and then they had a kid. I think it all started to sort of speed up after that, kind of like you're saying. I know people who, you talk about the twins first thing. I have a coworker who, they were not even married yet, had a surprise twins. You know, They weren't expecting it. They weren't trying.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, oh, you're pregnant. Oh, and it's twins. So, and now you're married, and good luck. And I don't think they've had another kid since, but that's rough. So yeah, we got started later in life. I think it's a little intimidating when you think about the age that we're going to be when they get to these different milestones in their life versus
Yeah.
like where their other parent, where their peers, their friends, their parents are going to be and stuff. And I mean, I'm not going to be in my 90s having kids for the first time like we
Yeah.
like we talk about a lot.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a little scary thinking about, like, when you think about, okay, well, if my kids have grandchildren and they're 25 to 30 when they have their first kid or something like that, then how old am I going to be?
Yeah. I think you're right around the national average right now. We're in 2024.
I don't
and
think it's too bad. It's
the
not
average age of a woman getting married today is 28 and a half, and the average age for a
Right.
man getting married today is 30 and a half.
Mm-hmm.
So you're just on the high side of that average.
So yeah, I got married
and-
at 33
Yeah.
and 32, I guess. If I had a kid at 33, then I had 32, yeah, somewhere in there. So yeah, it's about right.
Yeah, yeah, and I think who knows generationally what's going to happen when your kids become adults and what will be the average age of them getting married, them having kids,
Right.
what their stories are going to be. But yeah, definitely the more seasoned when you got married, for sure. Yeah, I was definitely not ready to get married probably when we did. I mean, I was ready, but experience-wise, had no idea what you were getting into when you get married, when you have kids. But we did it. We're on the young side, and where our kids are right now, like we are the younger parents of our oldest child. So our oldest son is 11, and he'll be 12 this year. And so most of the parents in his age group are quite a bit older than us. Mm-hmm. And then with my daughter, who's 9, she'll be in 4th grade this fall. We're about average, still a little bit on the young side, and then our baby is 4, and so I feel like we're on the high side with some of them
Yep.
because she'll go to preschool this fall for the first time, and I feel like we'll be going to see other parents at preschool that are potentially a lot younger than us, so that will be a different experience.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Yeah. So our second child just did the whole pre-kindergarten thing this year, and
Nice.
yeah, we're older than or a little bit older than some of them.
Yeah.
I think we look better than a lot of them. to
There
be
you go.
honest. There's
That's what
that.
matters.
Yeah,
That's right. Age is a number, man.
It's just
Who
a
cares?
That's right. Right.
Age is just a number.
So the real scary thing is that we just had our 4th, right? So he's just over 2 months old now, like getting close to 2.5 months, and so that's the one where it's like, man, 41 years old. He's got a 41-year-old dad. That's, woo.
All right, so let's go around and piece it together. So, Chris, you tell us how many years you've been married,
Yep.
how many kids you've got, and what their ages are. And then as soon as you share that, Kyle, you can share yours.
Yep.
And
Okay.
then I'll share mine.
All right,
Just so
so-
people can have a scale of what
Yep.
kind of
So
families.
we have been married coming up on 9 years, so almost 9 years now.
Okay.
Just under 9 years. And I'm 41, 4 children, 7, 5, 3, and 2 months.
Nice. So I'm 37. Been married for 13 years. So the twins are 12. My youngest will be 7 at the time of this, is about a couple weeks from now. So I'll just call him 7. By the time this hits the air, he'll be 7. So 3 kids, married 13 years, and 2 boys and a girl. Twins are boy and girl. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah. So my name is Jason. We've been married since 2009, and so we just celebrated 15 years of marriage last week. And I'm also 37, like you. I've got 3 kids, a boy and 2 girls. Our son is 11. Our daughters are 9 and 4. And so, got married right out of college and waited a couple years, started having kids. I became a dad when I was 25, which was terrifying. But yeah, I do the same thing, Chris. I think about, okay, if my son, when he's 25, that means I'll be 50.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking the other day, and we were talking about, my son Ethan was talking about when he turned 75. He was like, "You think you'll still be around when I'm 75?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll be 100 at that point. Like,
Got
I'll
this.
definitely
Be there.
be around for that, But just having fun with that. And so I play those games too mentally, where I try to figure out, what age will they be? How old will I be when they graduate high school? How old will I be when they finish college? How old will I be when they get married? If they get married same time I did or a little bit later. So
Yeah, we do that too. Yeah, it's weird to start, you get to certain numbers as an adult. You don't keep track of your age. I really, sometimes I struggle. People are like, how old are you? I'm like, which one is it now? 36, 37? Am I 38 yet? Then you do the quick math, right? And so you start doing that. But then, But then when the kids come along and they say, hey, Dad, what's up? In 6 years, I'm going to be graduating. That's when I start doing the math, and I'm like, oh, I'll be that old. Oh, then it matters.
I don't want to hear that.
All of a sudden, it changes, right? Like the number actually mattered to me, and the timeline changed. Because like if they didn't say that, 6 years from now I'll be 43. I care less, whatever. But then 6 years from now you're going to be in college. Oh no, what is that? It's wild. And then you start having like the countdown clock in your brain, like. It's almost like when they walk in the door, it's like this little digital clock is hovering above them. It's like ticking down. And you're like, I have this much time left before, like, you could potentially you're an adult. Like, what is that? Yeah. So it is, it's crazy. And it's amazing how everybody talks about, like the biggest changes in your life. And, marriage is a huge change. But, man, nothing, I tell young people this all the time, like young couples who, we talk with, and some who are getting married soon. And I say, there will be nothing that changes your life like having a kid. Like, marriage changes your life, absolutely. But the changes are so much more drastic when a child comes into the picture.
Oh, yeah. Your mission is completely different from that moment on.
The dynamics change. Your schedule changes. There's just so much more. The responsibility, the weight of responsibility just becomes, and that may just sound so obvious. And so many people who would hear this, like, who are parents, are like shaking their heads like, yeah, that's like saying the sky is blue, essentially. But I just don't think you can estimate that, how much change comes when a kid enters the picture. And it does just changes so much. And I think one of the biggest changes, I don't know how you guys feel about this, but all of a sudden time just starts to hit like warp speed. Like once you have a kid, it's like things are happening so fast. Prior to kids, it's like life had a rhythm, it had a pace to it, and it was almost felt manageable at times. Sometimes it felt like a slog. And I'm not saying there aren't days where as a parent you're like, oh man, will this day ever come to an end? But I do feel like when you sit back, you go, whoa, that was a year. Or wow, that was 3 years ago. Like they were just doing that 3 years ago, and now look at them. That's the one thing with kids. It's so hard to figure out like how that happens. I don't know what it is. How you guys feel about that?
I think it's definitely once you get to the point where probably when you're getting close to them being done with high school, I would imagine that all of a sudden it starts to seem like, wow, that went so fast. But I'll say this, now that we're on our fourth child, every time we reset the clock, and I refer to it this way a lot, we reset the clock where we now have a child who can't go to the bathroom by themselves, a child who can't feed themselves. And, you go right back into that mode where we're changing diapers several times a day and everything. There's that period of time. The lights just went out, but it happens. There's this period of time in there where it seems like, man, this is a grind. It can't go fast enough until we get past these certain milestones. And then I feel like parenting gets a little more on the, I won't say cruise control because it's definitely never cruise control.
No, you'll never get there. Not cruise control.
But it gets to the point where there's a little bit more, I'd say, a little more certainty to, you can kind of plan your day out a little bit more.
Mildly predictable.
Yeah. That's a good way of putting it.
It's become a little bit more predictable. Yeah, when they can put their shoes on, when they can get in the car by themselves, when they can feed themselves, they can go potty. All those things.
Get in and out of bed by themselves.
Yeah.
When you don't fear that a walk down the hallway could end in like falling and cracking their head open.
Yeah, and we've got upstairs bedrooms. Sorry, it's a second floor bedroom. So when can they get up and down the stairs on their own?
The stairs are.
Stairs
or something.
We didn't have any trouble with the stairs until our third child. Yeah. He's tumbled a couple times. He's
so you are the elder statesman, but you're also now have surpassed us as well in the amount of children. Once you got past 3 kids, Was there a big difference, or was it just like, all right, there's another? Like, is there a big difference with 3 to 4?
I think the difference between 1 to 2 is the biggest, I'd say.
Yeah.
But 4 is a lot. 4 is definitely a difference. And again, it's because we were so before this, our kids were all 2 years apart, right? So right about the time where one was walking, another one came around, or not walking, but getting to be a little bit more independent. Another one came along. But this last one, there's a 3-year gap. So our youngest was even more advanced, and then all of a sudden we're back to this again. So I think it if we were to go beyond 4, I think it would get a little bit better. But the older, you guys know this because your older kids are older than mine, but your oldest child is more helpful the more years displaced they are from the baby, right? So it's almost like the environment at home is a little more stable. It's a little more advanced in age, and I won't say grown up, but but it's so that's been nice. Having the 4th one, the older 2 especially are very aware of what's going on, and they're helpful and they're good. They're good about it. The youngest one is not, but 4 is tough, man. It is hard because how many others are running around while you're focusing on this one. And of course, the biggest thing when you have children, especially multiple children, is when one parent is not in the home and one is watching all the rest of them. 4 is a lot to watch by yourself. It is really a lot to watch.
Kyle, what's the age difference between your twins and your third born?
5 years.
Okay, so we're right around that. We're at 5 years. We're at 9 to 4. And so one of the things I've noticed is with 11 and 9, and then you got a 5-year gap, and then a 4-year-old, is those 2 big kids, we call them the big kids, they are very parently, very paternal or maternal with the baby, and they kind of get on her nerves because of that, because it's like she's got 4 parents in the home. But it does make things easier. We noticed a big jump when we went from 2 to 3. And the way that I've heard this described before is you quit playing man-to-man, and now you're in a zone defense. And so you're getting double teamed, one of the parents all the time, or triple teamed if it's one parent at home, like our wives are probably doing right now, or quadruple teamed in your case, Chris. But I do think the jump from 2 to 3 was a big one. And when we first got married, my wife wanted 2 kids, and I wanted 4. And so we compromised at 3. But I will say, after we had 2, we wanted to wait a while before we had a third to make sure we did want to have a third. And then after that, we both felt this peace of, we're done. We're done. We're complete. We're fine with where we're at. And our sister-in-law, my brother's wife, they just had their second baby about a month ago. And we were just on vacation with them at the beach, and I got to hold him. My wife got to hold him. And then afterward we talked, I was like, hey, you know what the best part about holding that baby was?
Give him back.
It's exactly what she said. And hand him right back to the mom. And so there was one time she was sitting there holding the baby, and the baby needed a diaper change. And she changed it one time, but then the second time was like, I'm not doing this anymore. She handed the baby off, and it was awesome. And neither of us felt like, oh man, we are really missing out on having another child. We really desperately want a 4th. It was no feeling of that. And so I may change. I'm the more emotional between the 2 of us in our marriage. And so when our baby goes off to preschool, which she'll do this fall for the first time, I'll probably be more emotional than my wife will be. And so I may start to think, hey, you sure you don't want a 4th? Then I'll just mess with her. But we're done. We're done with the 3 that we've got. You guys done with the 3 that you've got?
We just, similar thing.
Yeah.
My brother and sister-in-law have a 1-year-old. They have another one on the way. So we were at the beach, and the 1-year-old is running around, and she's great. Love being an uncle. But man, when I smelled something reek, it was like, hey, you guys are probably thinking about changing that diaper. And my favorite line was, I'm in retirement. Like, out of all 5 of us in my family who would be more likely to change a diaper, at this point, it'd probably be more likely one of my kids is going to, because my wife and I are like, we are done. We paid our dues.
That season is over.
We've been there. We got the postcard. We got the T-shirt. it was messed up. We're gone. We're done. And so, yeah, and I see that like the older, like you guys both said, your older siblings, helping the baby of the family. And I definitely see like our youngest, he gets frustrated because he doesn't want to be talked to by the younger two, or the older two that are kids as parents, because they also don't really understand how to talk to a child in such a way that is constructive and instructive, that it's more of demanding, or it's more, soaked with stress and anxiety, that my 6, almost 7-year-old is like, why are you telling me to do this like that? I got it. I'll do it. And so it ends up causing more conflict in our home when they actually step in. I mean, they definitely are great helpers. So I'm not saying that. It's just, it's funny watching, preteen age kids try to figure out how to handle a 7-year-old. And I try and remind them all the time, you too were once this way. Yeah. Like, you don't realize it, but you too were once this way. All the things you find annoying about him, you too were once this way, And it's, it's just a funny thing about life in general. Our parents probably could say the same thing about us. Like, you two were once this way.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
yeah. My mom has commented several times, like, you were just like that.
Yeah.
Not a shocker.
It comes back around, doesn't it?
So are you guys done at 4? Are you gonna press on for 5? You gonna try and get a full starting lineup for your basketball team? What are you thinking?
I will be honest. I have said we're done after every single one of them.
Okay.
So, and we're at 4 now. So,
and counting, maybe.
Yeah. No immediate plans. Yeah. I've said all these words so many times before. It's hilarious. So, kind of like you were saying, we waited after number 3. That's why I said they're all 2 years apart, except there's a 3-year gap between 3 and 4. That was like, okay, it took a lot of extra thinking and convincing for me to be willing to go another one. But so the thing that really inspired that is my dad passed away in 2021. And so it was just a few months after our 3rd was born. And I was thinking about kind of our family situation. I don't have like a brother and a sister. I was an only child as well. So we're thinking about, okay, so us being older, there's going to be a time where it comes like the holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, all these kind of things. Neither of us are from North Carolina. We don't have too much family in this area. My wife has some cousins that live in Statesville, so that's nice. But my family's in California. Her family's up in Pennsylvania. I have tried to convince them to come move on to North Carolina. It's a great place. So far, no luck. So we've been trying. But so you think about that whole situation. It's like, what do we want our kids to, what kind of an atmosphere do we want our kids to grow up in? And we want it to be familial. We want them, even so when they're up, and we want them to be able to rely on each other, to enjoy being around each other and have family around. So we kind of, I think, came to the realization that if the only way we were going to get that was if we created a larger family. So it was like, wow, we need to get more family. So we said, well, let's have another kid. And I don't, we're getting on the point where we're so advanced in age that it becomes sort of a quality control situation,
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You start to worry about these things, and we're already past that point where we really have started worrying about it. But you know that there's things that start to go not so great when you're actually past 33. I think is sort of what's the prime range? It's like 20 to like 30,
37, 38, right?
Yeah, we'll say that. I'm talking about for the woman mostly. It's not really a guy problem so much, but there's like those prime birthing years. I think we're already beyond all.
Well, when
of
you
it,
start to add, I think like the term is geriatric pregnancy, and when you use the term geriatric with somebody who is in their 30s, that just seems like an oxymoron. But that's what I get. Right. What you're saying. Yeah. Like it is. There's a time frame and a clock on those things too, for sure. And you got to be mindful of your health as the parents, because that's the other part to it, is you want to make sure that you're around and able to have a quality of life that you can provide just by being
right,
healthy and reliable for your kids.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. I think that's one of the things that it doesn't necessarily, the age thing doesn't necessarily come up, but I think about it a lot is, however long the Lord allows me to live, that's his plan, not mine. We were joking before when you said 100, Jason, I was thinking, I don't know if I want to make it to 100. Like, I don't know if I want to last that long on this planet. Like, that's a long time to be here, just as a human. Like, there's just so much junk in the world. I don't know if I want to endure 100 years, but whatever the Lord allows. But
You
the one
look
thing-
like younger than you are, though. So
I appreciate
100
that.
for you would probably look like about 84 or 85.
I just, I don't care what I look like. The world's gonna be a toxic pit by then. No, sorry. But I do think about not so much my age, but like my health. And this is my wife, if she listens to this, will go, yeah, think about his health. Because if you were to ask, when's the last time I saw a primary care physician? I was actually 18 going to college and it was mandatory. So it's been 18 years since I've seen one. But
You're probably good.
Yeah, I'm probably all right. I feel like I'm fine. But I do feel like that's one thing I think about a lot is not like, okay, what age am I going to be when my kids are this age? But what am I going to be able to do when my kids get to that age? And so I just want to keep myself in a position, health-wise, that I'm available, to be able to play around, to run, to jump, as long as your knees will hold up, and do those things. So those are the things that kind of come into my mind. And I think that's something that, our generation, I think, is a little bit more aware of, maybe than our parents' generation was.
Oh, for sure.
Because like physical fitness is such a thing.
Yeah.
And, I see that more, and I see dads who are trying to be more fit. The dark side of that is maybe becomes a little bit of an idol to them. But I do see that is something that is a big change from the generation that we grew up in and who was parenting us to now, and what it could look like in the future too. It's different.
Yeah, so to sort of piggyback on that kind of thing, I also think about what not how old am I going to be when these things happen, but how old are my parents going to be? So the grandparents, like, this is my parents and my wife's parents, probably a little more advanced in age than I really would like them to have been. I mean, if I had to do it all over again, would the me 10 years earlier than when we got married and started having kids, would that me have been ready for that? No, but I mean, the common thing everybody says is you're never really ready for it, obviously, right? So I would have preferred to have been younger, I think, for a lot of those reasons too, for the how able and energetic, I guess, are the grandparents and willing to explore things. Because there is things that like 5, 6, 7 years ago we talked about with like my mom or my dad and stuff about, hey, do you want to do this with the kids? That now that they're getting old enough to start doing some of these things, they're like, I don't know. I don't know if I can really get up to do that anymore. And it's like, man, that's kind of a drag when you get old enough that your parents start to wonder about how physically able they are to do things. That's just scary.
Yeah.
That stinks getting old.
Yeah, I think it's something you consider when you get married, when you start having kids. So my situation's a little bit different, but my mom got married when she was 17, and she had me when she was 19. And then her mom, I think, had her when she was 19 or 20. And so my mom, like, I'm late 30s. My mom is late 50s. My grandmother is late 70s, mid to late 70s. Mm-hmm. And then my great-grandparents, my great-grandmother is still alive.
Wow.
And my great-grandfather died. I preached his funeral just last month. But he was 95, and I think she's 93. And they were married for 76 years. Mm. And so I knew, especially on my mom's side, my great-grandmother's mother, which was my great-great-grandmother, I knew her. I think she died when I was 8 or 9. And so you think about all those generations, and now you're seeing so much of people waiting later to get married, later to have kids. And, we see that not just with us. Like, I got married, I was the latest at 22 to get married in my family when it happened. I was like, what are you waiting for? You're 22.
You're the oddball, yeah.
Yeah, what are you doing? Waiting so late to get married. And now the national average is almost a decade past that. And so I do think we're going to see less generational influence in our kids' lives. Like I was trying to stress to my kids, especially over the last 2 years, the fact that my great grandparents are still around, which is their great great grandparents. And I'm like,
That's amazing.
Most people, they'll meet their parents and their grandparents, but to meet your great grandparents is very rare. And for you guys to get to have a relationship at 9 and 11 and 4, to have a relationship with your great great grandparents, like that's something that when you're a grandparent, you're going to tell your kids that, and they're going to be like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
I don't understand. How is everyone still alive? And so we would take those generational, like 5-generation pictures together with my kids and me, and my mom and my grandmother and my great grandparents. And so I do think that we'll see less and less generational influence. And I think we're poorer for that as a society because I love hanging out with grandparent figures just to listen to what life was like. And there's a lot that we have so much better than them. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of things about their day that can be envied by our culture today.
Yeah.
Like the simplicity of their upbringing and childhood is, to be envied when you think about, when do my kids deserve a cell phone? Never. That's what it is. And so just the cultural media battle that we're facing are battles that our parents didn't face a lot of, and our grandparents never faced it. Mm-mm. And any previous generation, my great-grandfather, I think till the day he died, I think he may have had a flip phone at one point, but we always just called his house phone. Like, I don't think he ever sent a text or anything like this. Just totally different mindset with generational differences.
Mm. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, we are at a detriment. I think that's actually our culture. It's built in because we're just looking for efficiency, and like we move so fast,
mm-hmm.
and like older generations tend to move at just a slower pace, both just physically, obviously slow down, but also just because they're usually not up to date on the technology that is so rapid, and so our culture tends to just to pass by. But when you look at other parts of the globe, they tend to just cherish the older generation.
They move at the speed of relationship.
Yeah.
And we don't do that.
No.
We move at the speed of efficiency, productivity, getting things done. Mm-hmm. And it's all about the clock and it's all about the dollar. Yeah. And other places in the world, they move at the speed of relationship and they slow down. And like, I don't know if you remember this, but the trip that we went on a couple years ago, the missions trip to Spain, like they would sleep in and then they'd have like a hard stop for breakfast at like 9 or 10.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And then they'd have a hard stop for lunch at 2:30, 3 o'clock. And some of them wouldn't go back to work, and some of them would. And dinner was like 8:39.
It was almost eerie.
It was weird.
We were in this one in the smaller town. We were in Madrid, and then a smaller town. In the smaller town, the missionaries lived in a apartment complex.
Yeah.
And around 2 o'clock, it was just so quiet.
Yeah.
Like windows were shut. Doors were closed. Nobody was going anywhere because everybody was in their places eating a meal, a big meal. And then it was just like, you kind of look outside and nobody's out there. Like the streets are quiet. Nobody's at work.
Family time.
Nap
like, time.
What is this?
Yeah.
Like in our world, we'd be like, you're fired.
Western society has no concept of that.
No. And Spain's not, Spain's West Europe, so they're Westerners, but not the same as American culture is. I don't think we realize until you leave American soil, you don't realize how unique in some ways, we are so driven in things, and we are so we just run at such a high pace here that most of the rest of the world's like, that's crazy. That's nonsense.
It's a frantic pace.
Even I was listening to a podcast of a couple of guys who just talking about church matters. One guy's British, or he's Scottish, and he's just talking about how much time off Scottish pastors get. And I'm just sitting there, Jason can chuckle because we work at the same church, thinking there's no way that they would ever approve for that amount of time off for us.
Probably not.
Not at all.
How much did they get?
Oh, dude, they were getting like 6 weeks off in a year. 6 weeks? That's not including what they call bank holidays over there. What we don't get here, we don't get President's Day off.
We do not.
No. We get Memorial Day. We get Labor Day.
That's it, though, right? That and Christmas
and Thanksgiving. And then Good Friday, I guess. But yeah, so we get a couple of those. And I know, like, there's somebody listening to this who is going, why are you complaining, man? That's an easy life. That's how it should be. That's when everybody else is off. But what I'm trying to say is that's how everybody else off is in America.
Right.
The rest of the world is taking time off, and they are working at the speed of a relationship with people, and they're not just trying to get things done. And so we are just so worse off for that, because it doesn't matter to us here as much. It's just the value is just it. Our values are misplaced in a lot of things here, and I think that's one of the things that you're right. The generational, we've placed no value on generations here. It's just the here and now. What's relevant, which is also why the ages slide backwards too.
Yeah. And I was going to say, you see that in our culture. We don't value the end of life or the beginning of life. In American society, I mean, I'm not going to get off on a topic of abortion, but I will say that the beginning of life is not valued here. And the end of life isn't either. Like, we don't really take care of our elderly in the way that we should. And we're poorer for that. They're a wealth of knowledge and wisdom and experience. And when we don't take the time to invest in people from an older generation than us, we miss out on so much. Mm-hmm. Like, we miss out on a lot of wisdom and instruction and, the way of life that they had that was a pattern of what, Tom Brokaw called the greatest generation. Like, could we not learn something from these folks?
I'm sure we can.
I feel like we're poorer for it. Mm-hmm.
Thanks for listening to the Fatherhood Striving Together podcast. Be sure to follow or subscribe to catch future episodes. Consider leaving a 5-star review and look for more future content coming soon.